9 years ago, notorious troublemakers Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro made a decision that would send shockwaves through the political and cultural landscape of the world. They decided to found the Daily Wire.
A decision that would live in infamy depending on who you ask.
From humble beginnings, they started filming the Ben Shapiro and Andrew Klavan shows out of Jeremy's pool house, which isn't that humble if you think about it. How many people have a pool house? I've never had a pool house. I'd love one.
The Daily Wire would continue to grow, adding Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, and lacking diversity, they decided to expand their roster to include a token Canadian, Jordan Peterson. They later added Jake, Blaine, and David of Crane and Company, and the incomparable Brett Cooper.
And Morning Wire.
And Morning Wire.
All the facts. All the facts, none of the noise, the news you need to know in 15 minutes or less. Join the internet news revolution that is Morning Wire. It's a top 10 show. It brings you all the best type.
Can you stick to the script, please?
Come on, Morning Wire never gets any moment in the spotlight. We're always in the recording booth.
Yeah, seriously. And look, I'm going to ask the question that no one wants to voice, all right? Why are the two best-looking hosts in the entire company in an all-audio podcast format? Thank you. It's outrageous.
Guys, we talked about this.
All right, listen, you're not going to just forget about Morning Wire and roll some stupid hype reel or something.
Yeah, they will.
At the Daily Wire, we have a mission. Fight the left and build the future.
Am I racist?
Please leave.
We want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
Stop giving your money to woke corporations who hate you.
It's ridiculously exciting to be here.
You can see why Americans do not trust the media.
Together, we kick the government's ass.
What is a woman? Can you tell me that?
Every step of the way, we are there with you.
This is a battle of good versus evil.
This tragedy has only strengthened our resolve to expose the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the historic Ryman Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. Tonight, the greatest show at this time in this specific section of the country. Right now, Daily Wire Backstage Live. Now, please welcome to the stage the face of Mayflower Cigars, the man, Michael J. Knowles.
Stop it. Get out of here. No. Thank you very much. We're done. Thank you.
And now, star of the upcoming blockbuster hit, Am I Racist?
Thank you.
He's clever. He's wise. He's possibly older than this very building. He is Andrew Klavan!
Thank you.
And now, please welcome to the stage the undefeated, undisputed debate champion of the world, the tiny-hatted titan, the Hebrew Hammer, Ben Shapiro!
Thank you, guys.
And finally, Daily Wire co-founder and CEO, founder of the legendary Jeremy's Razors, Jeremy Boring!
What's up? What's up? What? Come on! Stand up! Stand up! Stand up! What? I can't hear you over here! Oh, they're loud! Let me hear you over here! Yeah! Woo! Welcome, welcome! Oh, so good to... Watch your feet real quick, buddy.
What's up, brother?
Yeah, what's going on? L'chaim, brother. Knowles. Great to see you, Klavan. Looking clean, looking clean. Woo! The Ryman, live here in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah. Woo! Oh my goodness, I got to tell you, I miss you guys so much. I know last time you saw me, I wasn't as thick, but I put on some weight.
Are you just gonna do the whole backstage live? Is that?
Wait. Backstage live? I thought this was Black Stage Live. I am at the wrong show. I'm supposed to be in East Nashville right now. I gotta get out of here.
Hey, leave the grapes.
Grape stuff.
There's a...
Unbelievable.
Oh.
Unbelievable.
Wait, one more. Okay, hey, don't forget to buy all new razors at jeremyrazors.com, Amazon, and Walmart.com. Black Jeremy, out!
I get absolutely no respect in this.
No.
Unbelievable. Welcome to Backstage Live at the Ryman Auditorium. We're absolutely thrilled to be with you guys again. Of course, I'm joined as always by Andrew, Michael, Matt, Ben. Jordan Peterson sends his regrets. We couldn't afford him. A lot's happened since the last time that we were here, and we're so happy to get to be with you at this really critical juncture for the country. It's 83 days until America votes for the next president of the United States. If you go back in time a mere 7 minutes ago, Joe Biden was the Democrat nominee. And it seemed like we were going to be able to sail our way to victory in November. We're not going to sail our way to victory. We're going to have to fight for every inch which is why we're glad to be with you guys today. I hope in some ways this is a bit of a pep rally to remind all of us that we have to get out there now and win the game. That's going to come down to every person here and every person watching at home. I've said it before, but you don't win presidential elections by supporting candidates. You win presidential elections by voting for candidates. There's an actual step. If everyone who said, well, I supported Donald Trump, had actually voted for Donald Trump, now you get a chance. We all get to get back out there in just a few weeks' time and try to make Donald Trump the president of the United States again and try to do something about this slow decline that our country has been in the midst of. We do not have to tolerate it. What the Daily Wire believes more than anything is that we have a mandate to fight the left and build the future, that we must be optimistic and that we must be in action. That's what we try to do every day, and we do it with your help, and we're so grateful to get to spend this time with you. Thank you for being here. So my least favorite thing to talk about at Backstage is politics. I think you guys talk about politics all day, every day. I think when we get together, we should talk about big issues. You know, one of my favorite conversations we've ever had was on this very stage 2 years ago when we got into that great discussion about marriage toward the end of the show. And I hope to touch on some great topics like that throughout the evening tonight. But I do feel like we have to address the politics of the moment. We have to address the election and the changing dynamics in the election because that's the moment we live in. So, Ben, why don't you give us your perspective on exactly where we are?
Well, I mean, I think that it's hard not to feel frustrated and outraged at this point in American politics. Because if you go back a few weeks, it was clear exactly who the Republicans were running against. The current sitting president of the United States, who, despite all appearances, is still supposedly running the country. And Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party decided that they were going to throw him out as the nominee and then leave him as the president of the United States. And so he's asleep on a beach somewhere in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and the world continues to spin. And somehow the media have decided this is no longer important. They've decided it's not important to ask Kamala Harris any questions at all. As I've been saying on my show, we are now on day 25 of Kamala Harris becoming the de facto nominee for the Democrats without a single adversarial question. Not one, not a single adversarial question. And what this means is that Donald Trump is not just running, of course, against Kamala Harris. He is, in fact, running against the legacy media. For about 3 weeks there was this nice illusion that they were going to actually do their jobs. And it's when Joe Biden basically pantsed them all on national TV. They'd spent 3 years saying that he was not senile, he was totally fine. And then he went on national TV and he appeared to be a complete dullard, a senile, Alzheimer's-ridden old man, which is what he is. And it made them all look terrible. And for about 3 weeks, they had to do their job. And then they forced him out and they went right back to the urine-filled kiddie pool they really enjoy with the rest of the Democratic Party. And so they've been spending every day since Kamala Harris was put in place without a single primary vote as the nominee, just enjoying this kind of warm bath of adulation that they've been creating themselves from their own bodily orifices, perhaps, with Kamala Harris. And it is an amazing thing to watch them perform this incredible transformation of one of the worst candidates in presidential history into a candidate of joy and happiness and love and unity. And it's unbelievably frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. And it's also frustrating, I think, because if you look back a few weeks, Donald Trump was going to win. And now if you look at the polls, Donald Trump is, in fact, down in the national polling anywhere from 2 to 5 points. He's down in many of the state polls. In the Real Clear Politics polling average, he's now trailing in the blue wall states that he needs in order to win. So what does that mean? It means that the path forward for Donald Trump is to do something that he actually has not had to do in quite a while, and that is define his opponent. Even in 2016, he didn't really have to define Hillary because we'd known Hillary for a full-on 24 years before she actually ran for president in 2016. When he was running against Joe Biden, he didn't have to introduce us to Joe Biden. Joe Biden had been on the political stage since well before I was born, and he was already president of the United States. I think those of us in the room, we're all very politically active, politically interested. That's why we're here. But that means that we think that we know Kamala Harris. Yep. The American public does not know Kamala Harris from anyone. They really don't know her. They've never met her. They've never seen her, which means the only way that Donald Trump can change the trajectory of this election right now is to define Kamala Harris. That's the only thing he can do.
And let's, first of all, we have to stop starting with Ben when we have these conversations. Because this is what Jeremy does. I don't mean to but he says, okay, Ben, let's get your take first. He says all the things it's possible to say on the subject in like 20 seconds. And the rest of them are like, okay, let's just move on and not talk about it anymore. But if I could add one note on that, I think that when it comes to defining Kamala Harris, the advantage that she has right now, because people are acting like it's a big mystery. How did she go from 1% in the polls to being this popular? Well, it's because the media, they could pull any random person off the street and say, we're going to make a star out of you. Now, it won't last, but they could get about 2 to 3 months. It's a fleeting thing, but they could do that with anyone. They could pull someone out of this room. They could make a star out of one of us somehow, if that's possible to do. Like, look at the Hawk.
Lord knows I haven't been able to.
Right. Kamala Harris is basically like the Hawk Tua girl of politics. And I don't. No, hang on. Get your minds out of the gutters. I didn't mean it like that.
How did you mean it, Matt?
How did I? I meant that she was a flash in the pan who became a star with very little substance. And Kamala Harris is the same sort of thing.
Is that all you meant?
I'm skeptical that is all. On the reintroduction point, I think you're totally right. But what's so crazy is Time magazine, you probably didn't see it because no one reads Time anymore, other than the liberals and the moderates. But there was this new cover, and it's Kamala looking so admirable and noble.
Into the future.
Into the future, she's looking, and it says, reintroducing Kamala Harris. She is currently the Vice President of the United States. Before that, she was a senator. Before that, she was the AG of California. And then if you read the article, which I don't recommend, you'll find out that Kamala was asked to do an interview for the article, and she said no. And she still got all that positive coverage. So the problem with defining Kamala Harris for us is, on the one hand, we want to point out she's the furthest left senator when she was in the Senate, to the left of Bernie Sanders, wants Medicare for all, for illegal aliens, totally open borders. You go down the list. However, she's also the most establishment of the empty suit Democrats there are. She doesn't really believe anything. She blows wherever the wind goes. The really crazy problem is, I actually didn't mean it like that. He set you up to think that. I did not.
This is the filthiest
shit. Get your minds out of
my dear Nana is in the
audience.
I
did not mean the point I wanted to make before you people intervened was now you seem like you got these two poles, the radical left and the establishment Dems. Actually, they're the same. Transing the kids is being pushed not by just some crazy fringe street person. It's being pushed by the White House. Abortion on demand being pushed by the White House. Totally open borders being pushed by the White House. So is she radical left? Is she establishment Dem? Yes, she's both of those things. How do you get that message across? I don't know how Trump does it.
I have to say, we have to acknowledge that Kamala has certain advantages in this moment. We were told one day that Joe Biden was the smartest guy in the room. Then he got up and did that debate, and then we were told, oh my God, this is a drooling idiot. He's got to leave. He's got to step down. Then he stepped down, and he was suddenly George Washington. He was the most selfless person. He was letting go of power by his own. They were dragging him out the door, but he was letting go of the power. And now suddenly Kamala Harris, somebody that everybody hated, including the news media, is absolutely the savior of the nation. If anybody who believes that wants to believe it, and if there are people who are actually buying into that, and there are, the polls show that there are, they must desperately want to believe it, either because they hate Trump or they're just so thrilled that the candidate is actually alive and not a weekend at Bernie's. And the other thing about this moment, and I think this is really important because we have all forgotten it, is Donald Trump got shot in the head, which slows you down. It's like, the guy is such a bull. He is such an absolute Iron Man. He's been indicted. He's been convicted. He's been, just absolutely reviled. And he just keeps coming back and he won't move. And then they shoot him in the head and he gets up and shakes his fist at them. Still, we think he's untouched. I think he's lost a step in these last weeks. I think he was taken aback, perhaps, by the completeness of the press's dishonesty, the media's dishonesty.
Yeah.
I think his game will come back. I simply think the guy is just too tough to go down.
Well, I was speaking with Nate Silver, the poll analyst, and he was saying that the turning point for Trump, if there is going to be a turning point, has to be the debate. Right? It has to be September 10th. Now, Kamala is running away from the other two debates. Right? Trump is doing the right thing. He said, I want 3 debates, not 1 debate. And the truth is, he should say, I want a debate every single week on a different topic, because she has been running away from cameras. I mean, it's insane how fast she's been running away from anything that looks like a microphone or a camera. And so it's his job to drag her into the limelight, and that is his superpower. His superpower is to direct the spotlight on things, and then the media are forced to cover the things at which he directs the spotlight. The problem is right now, as you say, the spotlight is pretty scattered. He hasn't really decided on his line of attack. I think that the joy line, this is a vibes election now. Yep. Right? That's what it is. And the media are right when they say this. It is a vibe, because if it were on policy, there's no way in hell that a candidate who is the vice president of the most unsuccessful administration in modern American history could be running a winning campaign if this were on policy. This is not about policy. What happened is that the American people were largely depressed because they didn't really like either of these candidates unless they were a Trump fan, but they certainly didn't like Biden. And so you can see it in the polling. Democrats went from 47% enthusiasm up into the 80s or 90s as soon as Joe Biden was out of the race, because they felt the vibe. They felt suddenly as though there was somebody who was not Joe Biden who was in the race. So the question is not how do you reverse the policy discussion. The question is how do you reverse the vibe. It ends up sort of being the same discussion, but he has to come up with the thing that Trump is best at, the thing he's a professional at. He is a professional labeler, right? This is the thing he's best at. He's amazing at it, right? You had Lion Hillary and Crooked Hillary, and you had Sleepy Joe, and you had Lion Ted, and you had Little Marco, and we all remember all the nicknames because this is what he's best at. He's literally a man famous for putting his name on giant, shiny buildings. This is the thing that he's amazing at. And he has not yet come up with anything that remotely looks like a good moniker to hang on Kamala. And I think that is a symptom of his inability to come up with the right angle. The scam blah thing, it doesn't work. Nobody even knows what it means. I think he's trying to do a version of DeSantis or something, but it doesn't work. In my opinion, the thing that he should be pointing out is that she is a damned liar. She is a liar. She lies about everything. She lies about who she is. She lies about what she stands for. She has, in the last 3 weeks, reversed every single major policy position she has ever held. But she's done it through surrogates without even saying it out loud. And the media just swallow this. So it seems to me that the only thing that he can do here is point out that she is radically dishonest, that this joy is fake. All of it is fake. And in the debate, the first thing he should say is he should say, listen, there's one thing we know about my opponent. My opponent is dishonest. And if you catch her in her dishonesty, she will laugh. And that laugh is not a laugh of joy, as the media would have it. That is a laugh of awkwardness and discomfort, because she is a liar.
But, yes, true. I agree with the labeling. He's very good at labeling. He's lost a step on the labeling thing, as you point out. And the nickname, this has become a personal project of mine. I have no influence and no power at all, but I'm trying to get some suggestions to the Trump camp, because they're really flailing right now. Kamala is not it. No. It's not doing it. Lion Kamala, he's used lion too many times. You go back to the well too many times. So my thing is, I don't know how you guys feel. I think Kamala or Kamila, right? Kamila? Do we like Kamila?
My alternative proposal was Kamaliar. Kamaliar?
It's too wordy, Ben.
Paktuala? That's where I thought you were going. That's where I thought you were going.
It's good, but I think there is corrupt and commie and corrupt. There's an alliteration. There's a labeling there.
Now I get it.
I liked.
Well, I got to slow things down so you guys can pick up what I'm saying.
I liked Kamala. I thought.
And also, Trump has a real issue with his nicknames. He never wants to do an alliteration. It drives me nuts. And he never does it.
He said that.
So
he said alliteration's not my thing. He said that.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is when you look at the demographic breakdown, there's some polling today, and what it showed is that Kamala is actually gaining among white men, non-college educated white men. Now, I don't know how much to believe that, because that seems ridiculous to me. Like, it seems ridiculous to me on the face. And the original sort of political hot take when she became the nominee was that she was going to lose with that crowd but pick up minorities. And it seems to me that, again, so much of this is media manufactured that the only thing he can do is spend money like water at this point. He needs to be spending money like water. The statistic that I saw, I don't know if you guys have been spending any time on the YouTubes lately, but on YouTube, you cannot open a single video. You can't open a Coco Melon video, not the trans one, the other Coco Melon videos for your kids, without there being a Kamala Harris ad at the beginning of the Coco Melon video. Apparently in the last 3 weeks, they have dumped in excess of $30 million on YouTube ads In that same period of time, Donald Trump's campaign has spent less than $4 million on YouTube ads. This is the time when she is defining herself for the entire American people. This is the time when he needs to be defining her for the American people. So I agree with you that he's not on his game, and there are a lot of reasons for that. I think part of it is the almost being killed thing, but I think a lot of it is that he had this election ripped out from under him. I mean, everyone thought that this election was basically over because it was, and then it wasn't. And I think it takes him a little while to find the footing. He doesn't have time. That's the whole game.
I agree.
The voting starts in Pennsylvania in 3 weeks. In 3 weeks.
But there was a moment that probably a lot of you saw on Stephen Colbert. I'm sure you didn't see it on Stephen Colbert, but you probably saw it on X, where Stephen Colbert told a CNN reporter, CNN plays it straight. It's completely objective. And Colbert's audience burst into hysterical laughter, so that Colbert actually had to blush sort of and say, I didn't think that was a laugh line, but I guess it is. The people know. The people have gotten the point. And Trump is kind of waiting for the honeymoon to be over, and I keep thinking, well, the honeymoon's not going to be over because the press won't let it end. But the press has not got the control that they had before. They still are powerful, they still exist, they still create an atmosphere that we haven't quite learned how to counter. But I think we're as powerful almost as they are, because people will turn to it. They know they're being lied to, they know they're being conned, and they will turn to places like X, like the Daily Wire, to find out what's really going on. And I think the honeymoon period will end, not because the press ends it, not obviously because the Democrats end it, but because the people end it and come and listen to what we're saying.
Good point. I agree time is short, but also we're in silly season. So then what ends silly season? The press is not going to end silly season. They'd lock her up until Election Day if they could. But she's agreed to do at least one debate. And so it just seems to me they're not going to make her talk. She's not going to voluntarily talk until then. She's going to keep dumping zillions of dollars into these YouTube ads. President Trump is going to be giving lots of interviews, many of which are extremely successful. It's not going to be able to totally break through. So we're all just waiting for the debate. And the debate is going to end silly season. In a normal election, that would have been over this month. But look, President Trump is pretty good at debating. I'm not saying he's the greatest debater since Pericles, but he's pretty good at it. In fact, he beat the last guy in the presidential debate so bad that that guy is not the nominee anymore. So it just seems to me this is our opportunity. And Kamala knows she's terrible at this stuff. That's why she dropped out of that debate, or out of the primary in 2020 before the first votes were cast. The only line she had during that whole debate was that Joe Biden's a racist. Then she ends up on his ticket. Then, her debate strategy against Mike Pence was just to interrupt him in an extremely obnoxious way. I don't think that flies with Trump. You don't do New York or obnoxious better than Donald Trump, so he's going to beat her on that front by a long shot. And so it's annoying. It leads to apprehension. I wish they were spending more money, absolutely. But unfortunately, I think that's our chance. The debate is the chance, and we're basically putting all the chips on Red 23.
There's one more group of people that we're at war against right now, not just the media. And to your point, Drew, that the media has that the people now know. I agree that the people know that the press is corrupt, but I don't think knowing that the press is corrupt is enough.
No,
because
I agree.
The press still has such hegemonic power in the culture that even though you know they're corrupt, it is still the only thing you hear.
Yeah.
And so it's one thing to say, I don't trust them. You still wind up agreeing with them a lot if you don't actually know alternative voices to listen to. But again, that's not the only problem we have. We have another problem, and that is the actual political institutions in the country. You say that President Trump got hit in the head with a bullet. And yet, the director of the FBI said before Congress that he doesn't know if Donald Trump got hit by a bullet. He may have gotten hit by glass or shrapnel, or it may have been the vibrations in the air from the sonic boom that scratched his ear, or maybe the Secret Service nicked him on the way. The head of the FBI said this, not in the hours after, during the confusion, a full week after, when all of the facts were known. And if you go back in time a mere 4 years, I love to use the line 51 current and former intelligence officials say that Hunter's laptop is Russian disinformation. And listen, in my opinion, if you're a former intelligence official and you knowingly lie to the American public, that's called freedom of speech. I hate it, but it's called freedom of speech. If you're a current functioning employee of the federal government and you knowingly lie to the American people, that's called treason. And that's not legal, and that's not covered by the First Amendment, and Christopher Wray should be in prison.
Yeah.
He should be in prison.
There is no question. But the point You know, this is absolutely true. And since Obama, the top echelon of both the intelligence and the law community has been corrupted. It's no question that he planted people in there. But the press, obviously what you say about the press, I 100% agree with. They still have the capacity to create an atmosphere of unknowing, if we will. Here's an advantage I think Trump has in the debate, a big advantage I think he has, which is this. ABC is one of the most corrupt venues of media information that there is. Yeah. I mean, George Stephanopoulos made his bones silencing rape victims so that the Clintons could get elected, first Bill, and then Hillary because he killed the Epstein story at ABC. They will not have the restraint that Jake Tapper had at the last debate. He is going to be debating the entire network, and Kamala has a very close friend in the executive echelons of ABC. They're going to come at him with everything. And I think if they pile on him and people are watching, first of all, he can take them. He's like King Kong on the, with the planes flying around him, take them out of the sky. But secondly, I just think it's unfair, and people are going to see and experience viscerally how unfair it is.
So I think there is another thing that's actually going to happen between now and the debate, but we'll get to that in a moment. First, it's time for our moment of good from Good Ranchers. We went on a search for our longest active Daily Wire Plus member, and we found Nick Hauser, who's been with us since September 2015.
Yay!
Nick became an all-access member on January 6th, 2021. Yes, that January 6th. While the left was losing their minds, he was investing in truth. When we launched Jeremy's Razors and Jeremy's Chocolates, he bought both, so he's got lots of razors and lots of chocolates. All of this surprised us, so we thought we owed him a surprise. Let's take a look at how we surprised our ultimate fan, Nick Hauser, with a moment of good.
And now, for a moment of good, brought to you by Good Ranchers.
Hey, Nick. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too, Lee.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to ask you a couple of questions today, but I have my customer service assistant here going to be taking some notes. And so we'll just jump in and, just get to know you a little bit. And
no way. No.
How's it going?
Is that an avatar?
Yeah, the AI is just getting this good, man.
Wow. Pleasure to meet you.
It's great to meet you too. Well, I mean, you are our longest active subscriber. You've been a member since September of 2015, an all-access member since January 6th, 2021, and a Jeremy's Razors customer. So we wanted to formally invite you and a guest to join us at the Ryman Auditorium August 14th, and everybody's going to hang out with you. It's going to be me and Matt and Michael, God love him, Andrew, Jeremy. Wow. We'll take care of the flight, hotel, transportation. You think you're up for that?
No way. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm actually blown away by that. I mean,
so that's awesome. I can't wait to see you on August 14th. That'll be great.
All right. Sounds good. Pleasure to meet you. Thanks, Ben.
Hey, good to meet you. All righty, let's give a big round of applause for Nick Hauser. That is what dedication to conservative values looks like.
Hey, our pals over at Good Ranchers came to us and said, we want to do a moment of good at Backstage. They explained the whole thing. And I thought, I mean, it's cool. We need a sponsor for like our Kiss Cam, because the whole thing feels like a sporting event to me.
Yeah, can I just say, I thought it was nice that we invited Nick. The fact you still made him pay for a ticket, I thought was a little bit.
Yeah. So, we're trying to run a business.
I get it.
We're trying to run a business.
We are not a charity. Yeah. So the thing that I think is going to happen, obviously, between now and September 10th, because that's still actually a fair bit of time, is the Democratic National Convention. And there are a few things that can go wrong here for Kamala Harris in a pretty serious way. Number one thing that can go wrong, Joe Biden is really pissed off. I mean, he is super pissed off in his waking hours. When he is not being cleaned by his
hour.
Yeah, exactly. When he is not being cleaned by the night nurse or spoon-fed by Dr. Jill. When she's not with Doug Emhoff golfing. In any case, he's doing that with the nanny. Stop it. Anyway, when he is awake, he is ticked off. He's been doing interviews, more interviews than the actual current nominee for President of the United States. He's actually done more interviews now as the non-nominee than she has done as the nominee. And he is clearly ticked off at Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Kamala Harris because he believes that he was still going to win that election and that he was ousted unfairly and that his record is excellent. And so there have been rumors that he's going to show up for night one for his big tribute. They're going to give him a gold wash. They're going to shuffle him off to the hospice. And he's not going to show up for the rest of the DNC. So you could see a little bit of a rift open there and some negative media coverage. The place where you're going to see a very serious rift is there are going to be probably 10,000 protesters who show up for their buddies in Hamas. And they are very excited to be there. They're excited despite the fact that Kamala Harris kind of likes them and is very much pro them. Kamala Harris selected a vice presidential candidate who hobnobs with the pro-Hamas crowd. Kamala Harris's only real public statement on policy since becoming the nominee was one where she was ripping into Israel for its supposed human rights violations. It doesn't matter. They're still protesting because they know that they've got the Democratic Party and they know that they can shove the Democratic Party even further left. And so that is going to be a good news cycle for Republicans because it turns out, you know what Americans don't like? Watching people wave Hamas flags in the streets of Chicago while burning. People just generally don't like that. And so the one area, this, I think, is a place where Donald Trump really needs to mine. A place where Republicans historically, the Republicans have only won one popular vote election, really, in my lifetime almost. I mean, you have to go all the way back to 1988, before George W. Bush in 2004. Right? Other than that, Republicans have not won a popular vote election in my lifetime. And so, that being the case, 2004, what made it different was that Americans felt a serious sense of insecurity. This administration is making Americans feel insecure economically, insecure in terms of foreign policy, insecure from things like terrorism, and that is where Donald Trump really needs to hone in, because Kamala Harris is a weakling. She's a weakling, and she's terrible, and her party is radical, and they are dangerous, and they endanger you, and they endanger your family. And Donald Trump, his world was a safer world. There is no way to argue that. Donald Trump was the best foreign policy president of my lifetime, bar none.
By the way, we are absolutely going to see the return of the Democrat Intifada at the convention, and there's no question that'll happen this month. But it won't just be the convention. This is the moment that the schools open up again, you are going to see the same keffiyeh-clad, purple-haired, half-lesbian leftist protesters going, waving not only the Palestine flag, but burning the American flag. And this is a case where I think, look, I want to make sure that all the students on the campuses are safe. I don't want Jewish students to be obstructed from going to class or anything. But short of that, let these people protest. You've got leftists protesting leftists, burning the American flag, turning off leftists. And the first rule, the most basic rule of politics is when your opponents are fighting amongst themselves, don't stop them. When they're showing the American people who they are, when they are lighting the symbol of the country on fire, that's a wonderful show, and I want that to be every YouTube ad that we see between now and November.
Yeah, that's right.
I'd say it's also a point of optimism, which is rare for me, but I think one of the good signs of this election that I'm kind of happy about, even though it's absurd to watch and it's infuriating to watch, is the fact that Kamala Harris is attempting right now to run to the right on immigration. Yeah. And she's attempting to present herself as all of a sudden a hardliner.
Well, she's never been a border czar, but she would like to be the.
Right, exactly. Exactly. But that shows you something. That shows you that when even Kamala Harris, the most radical left presidential candidate of all time, feels the need to present herself as law and order, you know, the prosecutor type, putting the bad guys away, when she feels the need to present herself that way, that means that we are winning on that issue. And Donald Trump should embrace that. He should say, okay, if you want to have that competition, who's more right-wing on immigration and crime, let's have that conversation.
And Kamala hasn't got Obama's advantage. Obama lived a shadow life. He actually kept his politics pretty well buried. He didn't vote on a lot of issues. He kind of finagled answers to questions for a long time. Remember when he sat and told Rick Warren that marriage was between a man and a woman, and then the minute Obergefell was decided, he lit up the White House with a rainbow flag? She didn't have that. We've got all the receipts. I mean, we've got video going forever of her saying all the things that she believes, banning fracking. I don't know. You know, this is a bad moment. This is a tense moment. I was one of the people who said, along with Nikki Haley, that the first person to dump one of these candidates, Biden or Trump, is going to win. I thought that was something nobody wanted that election. Nobody wanted to see it. This moment makes me nervous. I would be lying if I said it didn't. But I am kind of optimistic because I think that the onrush of lies, the wave of lies that hit the public, staggered them back. You can't do that for 90 days. I'm sorry. I do not believe you can get away with that for 90 days.
There's another thing I think the Democrats, listen, Democrats are professionals at this. I mean, they really are. This is professional level criminal behavior. They took their president out back and they shot him like Old Yeller. And then they supplanted him with Kamala Harris. And that's by the way, what parties used to do. I mean, that actually is what a powerful system does. And the Democrats just supplanted one member of the system with another member of the system, and they're running the exact same program, except with the new face on top of it. But they're doing something else that is quite clever, but it's a clue as to what they're afraid of. And that is they are campaigning on two specific words, weird and joy.
Yeah.
Right? They are filled with joy. So much happiness. Can you feel the joy? That weird cackle that Kamala Harris does, that's not a weird cackle. That's just what joy looks like. When she's dancing all strange with those kids in the high school and then cackling about buses and Venn diagrams, that's not strange. That's joy. Right? And it turns out that it's not weird when she's hanging out with Tim Walsh, who's busy transing the kids in Minnesota. And it's not weird when they're inviting every strange-haired person with a bizarre facial tic to the Democratic National Convention. You know, that's not weird at all. What's truly weird is J.D. Vance, who's married and has kids. That's what's really weird. And that he thinks that it's good for people to get married and have kids. That's the most weird thing of all, is that he thinks that. And so I think what they think is that the best defense is a good offense. They know two things. Americans are actually quite depressed about this administration. Americans hate this administration. Right. Americans are not optimistic about the state of the country or the future of the country under Biden-Harris. And so what they're doing is they're shifting that question, are you better off now than you were 4 or 5 years ago? They're shifting that into, can you see the joy on this one person's face? She's a person, right? It's about her. So it's about her joy, but not your lack of joy over 20% inflation over the course of the last 4 years. And on the weird thing, the thing they're afraid of is that the normies in America, 80% of Americans, might notice that these people are weird. They're weird. I'm sorry. It's a weird crew of people. I mean, they're all the people that Matt is making fun of in What is a Woman? Right? Just by asking them simple questions. It's people who legitimately believe that if you cut the penis off a boy, he becomes a girl. I mean, that is what these people think. And that is all strange and weird. And so, I think that this election could be, if Donald Trump has the again, it's always if with President Trump. Mm-hmm. But if he actually has the discipline to point out that this election is the normies versus the actual weird, that this election is the people who want a joyous and optimistic country, not a fake, NutraSweet joy candidate who's covering up an ugly policy agenda. That's where they're vulnerable, because they are weird and they are not joyous.
And I think your idea that it's a vibes election, it's dicey. It's a vibes election right now because the entire force of the media has been poured into creating the vibes. But if ever it should become an issues election, Kamala's finished.
Well, and this is the key. It occurs to me now, as we're talking about the weird, and Tim Walsh was the guy who started that attack even before he was picked for VP. But don't the libs like weird? Haven't we spent the last 30 years, keep Austin weird? The word queer means weird, and they've appropriated that as one of their favorite identifiers.
Well, but the word gay means joy, too.
You're right. They're weird and joyful. And so at a certain point, we get into this fight. We degrade ourselves to their level of third grade. You're weird. No, you're weird. No, you're gay. No, you're gay. I'm going to give you a swirly. But what's funny, to your point on the issues is, hey, guys, the border's open, and it's her fault. She's the border czar. I love there was that Politico article. It said, Kamala promises that she's going to go really hard on the border. Today, she is the border czar. Yeah. She didn't stop being the border czar. She is the border czar today. So you think, hey, hold on. Maybe all this weird stuff is like a trap, And if we point to the zillions of foreign nationals and terrorists and drugs pouring across the border, and you point to the horrible inflation, and you point to how the world's about to go up in smoke in World War III, and every actual thing that's happening, I think we win, right?
Yeah, but we should also point out that the stuff. It's important for us to also point at them and say, no, the stuff that you guys support is legitimately weird. Putting tampons in the boys' restroom is a very weird thing. I think it was CNN. They were talking, maybe MSNBC. You can't tell them apart. But one of them said that Tim Walsh put tampons in the boys' bathroom. That's great. That's big dad energy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell kind of dads are you hanging out with? Because I'm a dad, and if my son comes to me and says they put tampons in the boys' restroom, I'm going to walk into that restroom and pull the freaking thing off the wall and throw it on the ground. Like, that's what a dad does.
That's big dad energy.
That's big dad energy.
Pull that off.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny. The left knows all this. You know, the left says DEI. What a great idea. We're going to hire people according to the color of their skin and according to their identity. This is a great, great thing. So they say we're going to appoint a vice president who's a female and black. And you say, well, she's a DEI hire. That's a terrible thing to say.
How dare you say that?
You know, you say, well, wait a minute. You know, so this is a wonderful thing. We're going to put pornography in elementary schools. It's going to be great. Let me just read to you what's in there. No, don't read it out loud because that would be terrible. But I thought it was great. They know, and they're just, you know, they continue this gaslighting of basically saying we're doing it, we're not doing it, but it's great that we're doing it, but we're not doing it.
You know, Mike Anton at the Claremont Institute, he has a name for this. He calls it, there's a shout out for Mike Anton out there. He calls it the celebration parallax, which is it's happening if you're talking about it positively, but it's a crazy conspiracy theory if you're talking about it negatively. And of course, we actually have Joe Biden in official White House transcript referring to Kamala Harris as the prime example of a diversity, equality, and inclusion hire for his administration. His exact words. If you say that, however,
it's a terrible thing to say.
It's a terrible conspiracy theory.
Yeah. We'll get to more on this in a second, but first we need to talk about something else. Anyone with a basic understanding of economics can see the economy is in bad shape right now. I'm not saying the sky is falling. But would you jump out of a plane without a parachute? No! Well, consider this your economic parachute warning. I've been telling you for years to diversify your portfolio with precious metals. If you haven't yet, now is the time. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert your IRA or 401k into a precious metals IRA. It's a smart way to protect your hard-earned savings from the impending economic disaster. But hey, if protecting your financial future isn't motivation enough, how about this? Backed by popular demand, now through the end of the month, you can get your very own
24-karat gold-weighted
truth bomb on qualifying purchases. It's a little reminder of the truth bombs we here at Daily Wire deliver every day and the smart decision you made to invest in gold. Full disclosure, your golden truth bomb will not be quite as large as the ones you see here on the stage. Nonetheless, this is an amazing offer from our longtime partners, and you don't want to miss out. Here's what you need to do.
Here's what you need to do.
Text Ben to 989898.
989898. Text Ben to 989898.
You will get a free info kit and learn how you can own gold in a tax-sheltered IRA account. Let's all put our financial parachutes on before the economy takes a nosedive. Don't wait for the crash to hit. Text Ben to 989898 right now. Claim your eligibility. Qualifying purchases made before August 31st can get a golden truth bomb to serve as a reminder of the great decision you made to protect your savings with gold. That's Ben to 989898.
989898. Text Ben to 989898.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist. Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
white
folks,
white
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here?
This black person right here, does he not exist?
They gon' say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist. Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.
Back to sort of the weird conversation. I actually do think that this is the biggest conversation in the country, and you can tell by the way the media are focused laser-like on the cat lady comments that J.D. Vance made, right?
Yeah.
So the attempt to turn J.D. Vance into the weirdest person in American politics because he's a happily married man with children in a biracial marriage, by the way, and that this is somehow symptomatic of him being a deep and abiding weirdo because he said on Tucker Carlson that he believes, in essence, that it's very important for a civilization to have children and focus in on children. You know, the idea that is somehow weird is in and of itself deeply strange. Every society, every civilization, of course, has to have as its center childbearing and child-rearing. Any civilization that doesn't do that is a fundamental failure. On every level. There's no way to sustain or grow a civilization without that. And that is why they're so angry at J.D. Vance for having mentioned that thing. They're not angry at the cat lady comment. They're angry at the underlying actual issue that he was uncovering.
And they did that, let's remember, because the conservatives that look at the attacks on J.D. Vance and say, oh, it was a mistake to nominate J.D. Vance, I find that very annoying because what they don't realize is that the media and the left, they'll do that to literally anybody. Anybody that Trump happened to choose was destined to become a weird degenerate in the eyes of the media. Let's not forget that Mike Pence, okay, say what you want about Mike Pence. Mike Pence, the most normal guy who's ever lived on Earth, was made into a weirdo by the media in 2016 because he didn't want to go on dinner dates with women who weren't his wife. And that was weird to the media. So this is what they do to everybody. It doesn't matter who they are.
That's 100% true. The Mike Pence thing was particularly annoying because they had the simultaneous rule, which was that if you were in a room alone with a woman and then she accused you of something, she had to be believed. And also, you must be in a room alone with a woman, right? Because he said, I'm not going to do that. And they're like, that's so weird that he won't do that. But I think that this has to do with the fact that any cohesive society has to have a center, and that center has to be normality. And normality has a definition. And you can have people who are flitting around sort of the edges, who are in orbit around the normal sun. Right. But when the normal sun begins to dissipate, when it begins to crack up, when it explodes outward, which is what the left is actually attempting to do, then there is no center to hold the civilization together anymore. And the most fundamental, basic things that our civilization are about are the things that are under attack. It's why, again, I go back to the first comment I made, which is that I think we're all feeling like gaslit and annoyed and angry. And that's because when you're being lied to, people are lying to your face. They're telling you there's no such thing as truth, as Drew likes to say. They're telling you there's no such thing as a man, no such thing as a woman. That it's crazy to say that a civilization is dependent on people having kids. Or, God forbid you say, that is a morally superior thing for you to do to spend your life having kids and raising them as opposed to not having kids and not raising them.
And they should be asked the question, when in history has a sexual revolution taken place and sexual freedom become the norm, and it has not marked the end of a period of civilization?
Right.
It is always the end. I mean, all you have to do is go to the movies and you see, the Hunger Games, and what do they show you? To show you that the society is oppressive and decadent. They show you men dressed as women. They show you effeminate men. They show you, absolutely a sort of rainbow of sexual difference.
But there's that one babe with the bow and arrow.
A girl with a bow and arrow. It's like Diana, But I mean, I think that this is the thing. This is what civilizations look like in decline. It doesn't mean that there won't be a new rebirth. I think there will be. But still, this is what they look like when they're declining.
So I want to talk about the cat lady's comment from a different point of view, which is something that I've seen a lot online in the comments on X, and that's conservative women who are irritated by the cat lady comment because it seems to be an attack perhaps on women who can't have children for whatever reason, have not yet had children for whatever reason. And it might be easy to say, well, they're reading a little bit into what J.D. Vance was actually trying to say.
He said it wasn't specifically. Yeah.
But I think that the reason that they're getting to this actually is a problem that we have in conservatism that we have to figure out how to deal with. We've talked before about how one of the problems with the way that we frame issues as a movement is, you can say, well, as Ben does, and rightly, that, in America we understand the steps that are necessary to have a successful life. Just, finish high school, get married before you have kids, don't do drugs. If you do those three things, your chances of having success in the society go up exponentially. But for a lot of people, they hear that and they say, well, I already had a kid before I got married. Or, well, I didn't finish high school. Or, well, I have struggled already with drugs in my life. It sounds like you might be saying that opportunity in our society is already discounted for them in some way. And the left doesn't put up any of those sorts of impediments when they present their path for a person to have happiness. So I think that sometimes the way that we approach issues seems like it doesn't allow for actual people who've actually made mistakes in their life to live. And I also think that because feminism has been so ascendant for so long in our culture, there's a generation of conservative young men who are pushing back against it and have pushed it back against it to the point that they begin to express a kind of hatred for women. So there are young women on the right who think, well, there are men on the right who seem to hate us, and there's a sort of absolutist rhetoric on the right that says if we haven't had children yet, we don't have a possibility of happiness or a possibility of contributing fruitfully to civilization. Where are we? Where does that leave us?
You know, I think, though, it comes back to what Ben said about a center and the surrounding area outside. And this is something conservatives have been really bad about talking about. When Harrison Butker made his speech where he said, you know, you young ladies, the thing you're probably looking forward to most is family. And all the young ladies said, yes, that you, in fact, are telling the truth. The media is always the left, let's just call it what it is. The left is always going to portray that as bigoted and small-minded. But in fact, we all understand that there are women who don't want to have children or can't have children or who are doing something else with their lives. We understand that they're individuals, but all we're talking about is the center. And maybe that is the kind of language we should start using more often.
There's also, though, there's a difference here. You know, I was just listening to a great lecture at the Thomistic Institute on how to resolve this exact question. So I'm going to steal all of their ideas because they're better than ours. Which is good writers borrow, but great writers steal. I think it's true of podcasters, too.
Poor writers don't even use words.
That's right.
They never supposed to use a word.
Reasons to Vote for Democrats, available now on Amazon. You can go get it right before, if you want. Anyway, back to my point. Aristotle, who a lot of conservatives love, he's kind of the main man in political philosophy, especially for conservatives, he would say that some people are just not capable of attaining virtue. He uses this term natural slaves to not mean like chattel slavery, but just people who they lack the ability to have an education, they've screwed up so much, they're just not going to be virtuous, they're not going to be free, they're total losers, right? Which is the really, I think, unfair reading of what JD is talking about. So for Aristotle, he's right about so much, but he would not be able to understand someone like St. Augustine. St. Augustine, who's a complete degenerate, who does all sorts of terrible things in his life, and then has a radical conversion and becomes one of the most influential thinkers ever in the history of the West. What's the difference? Well, the difference, which would be not knowable to Aristotle, is Christianity. The difference is grace. And we happen to be a Christian country. We are of Christian civilization. And so that's really what we're talking about, aren't we? The people who want to willfully misinterpret what JD is saying are going to do so because they hate him and they're rabid partisan Democrats. But I think JD he's speaking of a caricature, which is a real problem. But obviously, we're talking with grace here. You know, if someone has made mistakes, has gotten hooked on drugs, has had a bad education, look, society is pretty broken. The education system's terrible right now. And it's never too late to repent and turn your life around and make something of yourself. And, you know, that's America. That's Christendom, you know? But that's the difference.
I think there's something else there, too. And that is that when I hear JD talk, and he talks about this sort of stuff, I think that he's speaking in the terms that we tend to use in our communities. And the United States, unfortunately, because of feminism, because of the sexual revolution, and because of the fact that the government has become so involved in every aspect of our lives, it has replaced community, which is the place we used to have these discussions, the place where the social standards used to be set. We're in your community, and you can see this in the communities that have kids versus the communities that don't have kids. So actually, tonight, some of our friends from Florida are here. They have 8 kids, which is a lot of kids. And one of the
small Orthodox Jewish family, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They have a minion at their home.
Yeah, almost. And the thing about our community is that everybody has at least 4 kids. Like, you're not in the club unless you have 4 kids. Right? We came to the community, we had 3. We're like, we don't belong here, so we had 4. And that's actually the way that communities tend to be built, right? So that in the cat lady sort of lingo, there aren't a lot of cat ladies in the community because everybody wants to have kids. Even the people who can't have kids, they want to, so they don't count as the cat ladies, right? Yeah. The cat ladies that JD are talking about are people who are like militantly anti-having kids because it is a superior way of life to not have children. And so, but that conversation issue used to happen at the local level. Because of the decline of church and because of the decline of community, there's been an attempt to remake that at the national level. And I'm not sure that it's actually possible to remake that at the national level. I think that has to be remade primarily at the local and then the state level, and then you can try to have those conversations at the national level. And I think that JD wasn't even speaking in the context of being a national politician in 2021 when he said all of this. It doesn't mean you can't say this as a politician. It means that the things that the federal government can and cannot do, or has a major and minor role in, are different from the things that your local community and your state have a major or minor role in, because this is an extraordinarily diverse and heterodox country in which we have less and less in common at the top levels. And that's why it's so easy to alienate huge numbers of people by saying something that in any of our religious communities would be considered perfectly normal.
Can I also, I have to chime in on this because I win the contest with 6 kids at this table.
Here we go.
So I have to have my piece. I also think that what J.D. Vance is saying, what like all of us are saying, is not that every single person on earth is supposed to biologically have a child. We recognize that some people just can't because they have physical issues. Some people want to get married and they never do. It's a great tragedy. Some people go into the religious life, or some people have other vocations. But what I would say is that every single person on earth, every adult, has a maternal or paternal vocation. And for most people, if you're a man, that means you're going to get married and have babies. If you're a woman, you're going to get married and have babies. But there are people that they're going to find that vocation in other ways, through missionary work or the religious life or something like that, adoption. But the point is that nobody is called to live a life totally in service to themselves. Right. Nobody is called to, right. Nobody, and this is our response to the feminist girl boss stuff. It's not that no woman should ever have a job. It's that no woman is going to be happy if she tries to find her meaning and purpose in life in, going to a corporate job and earning a paycheck. That is not supposed to be anyone's meaning and purpose in life, and that's our point, I think. Yeah.
What? I'm just glad that we don't have to put all the women in those red dresses and white bonnets.
Oh,
yet.
I love those. I love those.
That's a good visual to leave you with for intermission. We're going to go back and use the restroom. I'm not going to lie about what we're about to go do. Hopefully you can go out front, do the same thing. We'll be back right after...
That.
What? They just said something in my ear. It's not... Right now? That's how that goes? Huh. In front of all these people. You really would have thought they would have put that in the teleprompter. Well, everything I just said is a lie. We are going to put women in the red dresses. And apparently I just have to pee myself sitting in this chair. I really need to go backstage. But what they tell me is that instead of this being intermission, it is instead an opportunity for me to introduce you to 3 more of our beloved Daily Wire contemporaries, our peers, our colleagues. These 3, stronger than the rest. These 3, more athletic, certainly, than the rest. These 3 look better in dresses than anyone else on this stage. It's our very dear friends, Crane & Company.
I love it. Can you feel it? Woo! No, I can. Welcome to the Crane & Company Almost Halftime Show, presented by Jeremy's Razors. All right, gentlemen, first half of the show, a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm, some great analysis. We even had a choir How awesome is that? You got a
Come on.
David, I know you're a former Michigan guy, but how do you think the first half went?
Look, very well executed in the first half. How could it not be for the brightest minds in America, plus Michael Knowles?
It's so nice they bring it.
Hey, look,
so nice they bring
massive election coming up, huge implications.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be on a Wednesday evening than on the Ryman stage with a room full of patriots.
That is true.
I love when you get excited.
That is true.
I love it. I love it. Blaine,
Yeah.
I've been watching you. You've been staring unbelievably intently at all the gentlemen up here. To be honest, it kind of creeped half of us out backstage.
Sounds like me.
But what have you thought so far?
I'm to be honest with you, I have no idea what these guys said the last hour. All right, but there is one massive thing we haven't talked about yet, and that is, am I a racist?
Hey, you're not a racist, man.
No, David,
Not
no.
me.
For the 1,000th time, nobody is calling anybody racist.
Come on.
We're talking about Matt Walsh's new movie. The trailer just dropped. Am I racist?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. And please, David,
Yeah.
check your privilege. Please check your privilege.
bigot.
Which reminds me, last season, all right, the Daily Wire released what some people are saying is the first ballot Hall of Fame, all-time great comedy. I don't know if y'all saw it. Lady Ballers? Maybe y'all saw it. How do you top that?
Yeah.
The actors were unbelievable. The production was incredible.
I know.
But do you got a play or something maybe they could scheme up?
First of all, I have a play for everything, and I'm glad you
do.
asked.
I've known your
And
whole
we're going to
life.
start this off with little cute Matt Walsh here with his cardigan. All right, remember this about Matt Walsh. He didn't just fall off a coconut tree. All right, he exists in the context of making what? And that is,
Show them.
what is a woman? Right here.
There it is.
Boom. Kind of looks like my ex, but you get it.
Yeah, that really
All right.
that's actually better looking than your ex.
That is
But besides being unburdened, let's not forget that What is a Woman is the second best movie / documentary created at the Daily Wire.
Which second's not bad to Lady Ballers.
No,
But every single movie the Daily Wire puts out gets censored by the political left. I'm talking about shadow bans.
I know.
DDoS attacks. I don't know if you have a play for that, man.
Oh, I have a play for everything, David. And what you don't know, what we have on our side, and that is a horde full of base patriots.
There we go.
Right? And right now, all right, those base patriots are running a little screenplay. But the Daily Wire has one more trick up their sleeve. Do y'all want to know what it is?
A reverse.
Do y'all want to know what it is?
Flea flicker.
It's movie theater.
Go!
Come on.
Taking over the movies.
Come on. Hey, but this is what needs to happen, all right?
Lock in,
Every
lock in.
based American around this country, you have to go buy a ticket. And when you do that, this is what will happen. Matt Walsh, with his great beard, all right, his cute little cardigan, and the Daily Wire can slide in for the touchdown.
There we go.
And if we're going to talk about touchdowns, let's talk postseason awards. I don't know, maybe the Oscars?
Look, it feels like
Maybe a Best Picture?
Hey, it feels like a Nickelodeon award to me. I'm going to be honest.
Better than a Razzie.
Matt Walsh getting slimed is great for America.
100%.
All right, so you heard it here first. Go buy your tickets for Am I Racist? It's available now. You can get merch in the lobby. Some really cool stuff out there. We got a great second half of the show. Let's get Matt Walsh to the Oscars because we know he's not going to a WNBA game. And as well for Crane & Company, we're going.
Gone. See
man.
y'all.
Gone. Thank you. God bless.
Hello, everybody. I wish I could be there with you tonight. I have exciting news. Since I joined forces with the Daily Wire Plus 2 years ago, we've built a comprehensive collection of premium content. We've developed these shows not only to provide you with a structure and framework for meaning, but to arm you against the sadistic troll demons. My collection, which we've titled Mastering Life with Jordan B. Peterson, acts as a guide to help you win at the series of games that make up life. My series, Marriage, was designed to help you strengthen your relationship so that you can create the perfect date that repeats endlessly. In the series on masculinity, dragons, monsters, and men, I outlined a way of discovering your purpose, of slaying the dragons that stand in your path. In Vision and Destiny, that will help you transform the chaotic potential of the future into the actuality that you need and desire. This fall, we're adding even more exclusive content to my Mastering Life series. My new series, Negotiation, offers a practical guideline to help you close a deal where both sides walk away with a win. We're also offering a 3-part series on success, strengthen your family and to strengthen your relationships and to aim up. You don't want to deteriorate into an idiotic hedonism. 2 of the top things people are struggling with are depression and anxiety. Well, we walk through that at the practical level and then right down to the neuroscientific level in my 5-part series, Depression and Anxiety. In addition to our Mastering Life series, we've explored biblical writings and their cultural influence, including a deep evaluation of the books of Genesis and Exodus and how the biblical corpus, the biblical library itself, came into existence. Our new 10-part series on the Gospels delineates the accounts of the New Testament writings. And finally, join me on a journey through time to find out where we came from and how that formed who we are and what we believe. Foundations of the West. The first episode is out now on Daily Wire Plus. Rome, Jerusalem, Athens, 5-part series. I had a blast making it, and I hope you find it extremely useful to watch. For those of you who have already subscribed, thank you very much. Stay tuned. We're releasing new content now every week through the end of the year. For those of you who have yet to sign up, use promo code Jordan and save 35% on your annual membership. It's a hell of a deal. Visit dailywire.com to get the entire collection of Mastering Life, plus all the new releases that are to come. The work I'm doing in conjunction with the Daily Wire brings the spirit of adventure forward. Join us on Daily Wire Plus today. Onward and upward.
All right, who's having a good time tonight? Let's hear it one more time for our gospel choir tonight. And who's ready for more from the Daily Wire Backstage Live? We've got more coming. It's now time for more Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh,
Come on.
Andrew
No,
Klavan,
come on. Hey.
Jeremy Boring, and Ben Shapiro.
Come on.
Guys,
Keep going. Keep going.
Andrew's almost old enough to be president. Please don't startle him. How about that choir?
Wow.
So good.
Wow.
Oh my God. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to follow them out.
That is the second best musical act ever to play a Daily Wire Backstage, which is saying something. That's impressive. You know?
Well, they couldn't get number one back together again.
No, they couldn't. They
That's
couldn't.
the whole problem. So,
Not on the stage.
the people demand a gun show.
Not on the stage. It's not time for that. What do you think I am? Running for president?
All right, folks, that's enough outbursts. Security. Look for the troublemakers. Get them out of here.
So you look at the world right now, it's very easy to focus on our domestic problems, which are immense. But the world's actually a very frightening place everywhere you look. And if you listen to our shows, it can be something of a discouraging experience in moments like this. You know, you've got Ukraine is conducting offensive operations in Russian territory today, the first time that in Europe there's been a war of any consequence since the Second World War. You've got China on the move. You've got massive political upheaval in huge percentages of the world. I mean, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh just had to flee her office. There's massive uncertainty happening, economic uncertainty. We see our stock market doing things that no expert can actually tell us why it's doing the things that it's doing. At the moment, you have people very unsure about their future, and yet the five of us are generally optimistic fellows. The five of us are generally positive fellows. Yeah, sure.
Like 2.5 of us are sort of optimistic.
Behind the scenes. I think it's no surprise that we're a fairly religious lot. Each of the five of us has a pretty pronounced religious point of view and very distinct religious points of view, one from another. And while people listen to our shows and they know that about us, we've never, I don't actually know any of your stories other than Drew's because he wrote it in a book. And then made me read the book.
It was good for you. Yeah.
And so I thought it might be an interesting way to kick off the second act to be a little bit more personal and just kind of go around the horn and briefly talk about each one of our sort of religious journeys that brings us to where we are, and then have a discussion about how, where's the commonality between our points of view and where are the distinctions between our points of view. Drew, tell us about the great good thing.
Well, it's been 20 years since I was baptized, so I was about 90, I think, at the time. Yeah. And it would almost be an understatement to say that in that time, Christ has moved to the very center of my life, and there's just no question about this, that this is what I wake up, what I think about. And more, I become convinced that the ways we talk about God need to change. And the reason is simply this. I think too often we talk about God, the results of faith. Faith makes you happier. Faith holds families together. Faith makes a society better, all of which is true. But it's true for a simple reason that God actually exists. And once you catch on to that stirring little fact, everything about your life changes. What changes about your life is that you're actually seeing reality. My big fear, if you read The Great Good Thing, which is my memoir of conversion, my big fear was that I would lose my sense of reality. I would become one of these Jesus people who thinks everything's going to go great now, and I'm chosen and favored, and nothing can go wrong, and there's no death. I don't have to think about death anymore because all that's taken care of. And I was afraid that would just absolutely detach me from reality. Instead, the weirdest thing has happened as this religion has become centered to my life. One, my outlook on the world has gotten much darker. I see it as a darker place than I used to see it. So I've become more realistic in that sense. And at the same time, I am far more joyful and serene than I've ever been in my life. And what a strange paradox that is. And I don't want to, I don't want to talk forever, but what that means to me is that this moral vision that we get from the Bible is true. We do violate it every day in the deepest, most evil, most corrupt possible ways. The world is a corrupt, evil place. But we are in touch with the doorway out. We're walking toward the door, and the doorway takes us out of history, out of corruption, out of the world, as they say. And I got to tell you something, guys. Every day, and obviously I'm about 10 minutes from leaving the world, in fact, but every day I am just more at peace with the world as it is, and optimistic at a level that goes way beyond the next election. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Not even optimistic, maybe you would say, but you have the theological virtue of hope, which is one of the three theological virtues. I was not 50 when I got baptized, but I was a cradle Catholic, but I fell away for about 10 years. I was practically an atheist and explicitly an atheist for a lot of that. And I had kind of a weird way back into religion, which is that this worked on C.S. Lewis, but I haven't heard it work on other people. A friend of mine presented me the ontological argument for God, which is one that even St. Thomas Aquinas doesn't really like. And the short version of it is God is the maximally great being, and it's better to exist than not to exist. Therefore, God has to exist. That's pretty much it. There's fancy ways to say it, but that's pretty much the argument. And the crazy part is I was 18, and it convinced me. And then I looked into more robust, and I think really irrefutable arguments for the existence of God, St. Thomas's 5 ways, and et cetera. And so then I came to the conclusion, as the First Vatican Council did, that the existence of God can be known with certainty by natural reason from the created world. Not everything about God can be known from reason. That's where revelation comes in. That's where faith comes in. But you can know that. And so I still thought, because I was raised in a liberal New York, and if anyone even believed in God, they were considered weird like J.D. Vance, that I still believed that reason and faith were opposed. And actually, there are many people who call themselves religious who think that. But then I just decided I might crack open a book one day. You know, I might read, I might, and so this is all even before I really start praying. Boy, prayer, highly recommended. That really opens up your religious life. But even just reading, you know, it turns out that all these questions that perplex us today, it turns out that smarter people than we thought about them a long time ago, and they've debated them for millennia, and they've come to some pretty good answers that might be better than the ones that you've come to. So anyway, I broadly then agreed with Christianity. I read the Gospels, and I believe that Jesus is who he says he is, but I didn't know about Protestantism or Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy. And anyway, I came to the conclusion that the historical claims of the Church are true, of the Catholic Church are true, and I also came to I hear some mackerel snappers out there. Even in the heart of the Bible Belt. And so I came to that conclusion, and I came to the conclusion ecclesiologically that the claims about authority that are made by the Catholic Church are true. So that authority has to rest in an incarnational, real institution with real men. And this is the part that actually comes back to politics, because I know there are a lot of people who say you can't legislate morality and you got to get religion out of politics or whatever. I'm not one of those people. I suspect many of you are not those people. I came to understand that what separates Christianity from other religions, especially like the dharmic religions, the non-theistic religions, is that ours is a faith that is grounded not just in poetry, not just in philosophy, but in journalism, in fact. You know, the claim of Christianity is God becomes man in a place in the fullness of time under the Roman Empire, which is actually significant, and he picks real people, and he establishes a real church, and he leaves us real sacraments, because we're not just floating spirits. You know, in modernity, liberalism tells us that we're just kind of floating in the ether, man. There's no time, there's no body. I'm a man, but I could be a woman, you know, whatever. I could be whatever I want to be. No. What Christianity says is man is irreducibly historical. Man has a body, he lives in a place, he's born to a family, in a political community, and that all means something. And so that then informs one's political views, because it means that, you know, this is the moment that we're chosen for. This is the country we were meant to be born in. We have real bonds of kinship to people that points to something beyond the world. We have a dual nature, a corruptible flesh and an incorruptible soul. We have a mind that partakes of eternal and universal things, but we have a flesh that's contingent and dependent on all sorts of other things. And you can't separate those two. St. Paul says, you know, if the resurrection is false, then we're all just a bunch of dopes, basically. You know, it has to be historically true. And the final point I'll make on this that's important to politics is, if all of that is the case, if the Word is made flesh and dwells among us, and actually the second person of the Trinity lives in time and is crucified by a legal authority with jurisdiction over the whole world, it means that history is not merely literal. It means that history has an allegorical meaning, that we interpret history. The political events that we're in, this very moment that we're all in right now, we can't understand the full meaning of this event in our lives as it happens. We do that in retrospect. We do that as we interpret history, which is just the record of the political events that have happened. And that means that there is meaning, profound meaning, imbued in every single moment that we live. It means that we encounter some random Joe on the street, to use a phrase from C.S. Lewis, we're encountering an eternal being, and we cannot possibly overstate the significance of that.
So, obviously, I'm a little...
Yeah, bring it, Ben. We're for you. We're for you.
It's okay. It's okay. You know, so me and my 5 Jews in the crowd. I'm not going to get a big shout out. But, so I mean, the story of my family coming to religion, both of my parents grew up in non-religious homes. They became more religious when I was about 8 years old. They started going to a synagogue pretty regularly. They were looking for a community to be a part of. They'd always been interested in more authentic forms of Judaism. For people who are Orthodox, Reform, and conservatism, like conservative Judaism, not political conservatism, are not authentic forms of Judaism. Authentic Judaism takes the Torah, meaning the 5 books of Moses, seriously as well as literally, and takes it so seriously that we enact the commandments that are in the 5 books of Moses every day of our lives, from when we wake up to when we go to sleep at night, and also we wear these funny hats. And So my parents, when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, they started going to a congregation down in Venice that was led by a guy named Daniel Lappin, who's friends with Jeremy as well. A very interesting person. They started becoming sort of ensconced in orthodoxy. We became fully orthodox when I was probably 11 or 12 years old, so I remember eating a KFC and McDonald's.
Brutal. Brutal that you have the memory of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that
Can I say that it's brutal every time I think about it, too?
I mean, so I will say that I was envious of that until I went to Israel, where they actually have a kosher McDonald's, and I tried it, and I was like, what are you guys all talking about? Like, what's so great about this? Anyway, the hash browns were really good. In any case, we became Orthodox, as I say, when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old. And then, like everybody else who's sort of, religious, you go through a period of maturation in your religious viewpoint. And I think that one of the big mistakes that people make when they grow up religious is not actually going through that struggle and trying to come up with good answers to solid questions about the things that they believe. And the biggest step, I think, is there's an attempt when you are 11, 12, 15 years old to suggest that there are proofs for everything in life, that anything can simply be proved by talking about it enough or thinking about it enough. And me being a particularly rationalistic type of person who really enjoys the process of logic and reasoning, that's why I like debate, for example, it's why I love reading, it's why I love writing. But for me, that's a very sexy idea, this idea that you can sort of logic your way to the proper conclusions about the world. And you can theoretically, but the reality is that in the end, the choice to believe is, in fact, a choice. It is not merely a thing where logic compels. Because for every proof that Aquinas gives, there are, in fact, sophisticated ways that you can argue against them. I don't think they're fully convincing. I agree with Aquinas' proofs. But with that said, are they fully dispositive, such that they demand that every person who reads them immediately convert to Catholicism or convert to belief in God at all? I don't think that's the case. I think the best proof of God, and the thing that I've really settled on, is that we live in God whether we believe in God or not. And what I mean by that is we live by God's rules. The reality of the world is a godly world. So whenever we get up in the morning and we do a thing and we find that thing meaningful, that does not exist in a non-godly world. In a world where we're just meatballs wandering through space, none of that has any meaning, nor are you making any choices in the world. There's an argument that I had with Sam Harris, where he was making the argument there is no such thing as free will, for example, and I was saying, well, then I don't understand why you find any of this discussion meaningful, interesting, or worthwhile, and you're using an awful lot of active verbs for a person who doesn't believe in free will, who would say, we think about X, or we say X. I say, well, you don't do anything. I mean, it's a bunch of synapses that are doing that for you as the result of millions of years of evolution. The reality is that if you believe that there is a relationship between the things that you do and the result that is obtained from those things, you are living in God's universe. If you believe that there is a moral logic to the universe, you are living in God's universe. And there's hardly a soul alive who doesn't believe those things deep down in the marrow of their bones. And that's not something that can be proved through logic. It's just a way that you live. And that's why whenever we have discussions about what you believe, I think that no one really believes in God in the same way that you believe in a logical proposition. You believe in God in the same way that you believe you love your wife, for example. And the way that you believe that you love your wife is that you wake up every morning in the house with your wife, and then you do things that are the love, right? And and this is where Judaism really speaks to me on a personal level. Judaism is an action-oriented religion. It's a thing where you are reifying concepts in the world via what are in Hebrew called the mitzvot, via the commandments. And they are very complex and they're very abstruse. And that's the point. You don't understand all of them. You try to understand as many of them as you can. But the reality is that any system that tries to bring the profound down to real life has to meet with reality, and that has to be done in a system of rules and laws that govern your behavior and help you achieve what Aristotle is trying to achieve, actually, when he suggests that you actually build virtue through repetition. That is what the commandments are for. And so, when I think about my own Judaism, what I think about is the fact that I'm a link in a chain that carries back thousands of years into history. It's as Brooke talked about, as far as what an actual social contract looks like. It's not just a contract between people who are living. It's a contract between the dead and those who have yet to live. And to me, that's what religion is. That's what Judaism is. I'm carrying down a tradition that was held by my ancestors thousands of years ago. With the help of God, it's a tradition that will be held by my descendants thousands of years from now. And it is a testimony to God and history, the continuation of the Jewish people. That is a testimony to, that's not my point, that's Mark Twain's point, that's Arnold Toynbee's point, despite himself. The reality is that the continuation of the Jews as a people who are keeping the same biblical religion that was brought by Moses on Mount Sinai 1300 BCE or BC, that is a testament to the fact that God does speak to humanity and speaks to humanity in the terms of history. And we see this history play out in our own time. When I think about October 7th, the meaning of October 7th to me is different because I'm a religious person than if I were a non-religious Jew. The fact that I'm a religious person means I look at October 7th and what I see is an age-old hatred that is directed against my people, against a people that I belong to, but on the basis of my religion, and that is never going to go away. That is always going to be a part of humanity. And the best parts of humanity, Jews and Christians alike, fight that. And they fight for it together. Because in the end, when I say Judeo-Christian religion, I'm not doing that to denigrate Christianity. As a Jew, I'm doing that because I have such respect for Christianity. Right? Understand, when I say Judeo-Christianity, it's not me trying to water down Christianity in some way. That's me saying that Christianity is a wonderful outgrowth for the world that has its roots, obviously, in Judaism, because Jesus was a Jew. And so, that reality is what religion means to me. It's what I hope to pass down to my children, and it's how I find meaning in the morality that I think that we all, I hope, draw from the same wellspring.
There's a very beautiful point. I love when you said we reify something, meaning, to make manifest, to make it real and tangible. Because this is a point that one of my main men, kind of my main man in all of literature, is Dante. And Dante makes this point. Love Dante. I don't know if you heard of him. He's a medieval Florentine who wrote a poem. And
Wait, you like Dante?
A little bit. There are like 3 Italian authors, so I had to pick one. And Dante makes this point in a letter to his patron, Con Grande della Scala. He says there are 4 layers of meaning in his poem, and he really thinks in the Bible and throughout literature. And the example he uses to demonstrate this is the Exodus. He quotes from Psalms, and he says, the Lord leads the people, the Jews, out of Egypt into Jerusalem. And he says this has 4 meanings. There's a literal meaning, which is the Israelites leave, Old Testament Israelites are leaving Egypt, going to the promised land in Jerusalem. The allegorical meaning is the salvation won for us in Christ. This is the Christian reading of it. The moral meaning is the turning from sin into, through grace, into a good life. And then the anagogical meaning from the perspective of the end times, is the leave-taking of this corrupted world for heavenly glory. The 4 layers of meaning all in one line of Scripture. And so when you discuss this, you say, look, my people are a literal instantiation of this thing. There's something really beautiful about that idea because we write our stories in sounds and scribbles. We use words and sounds in writing. But God writes his story with us. Another writer, more eloquent than I, has said that we are the syllables in God's story. And that's obviously the case. And so to focus in and say, I like the allegorical and the moral and the anagogical too, but to say, no, there's actually a lived and historical thing that is going on that is telling God's story. Well, yeah, that's how the story is told.
Michael, it was not your turn to go again.
Oh.
Michael,
were you going to use the term anagogical?
I was.
What?
I had a whole thing about anagogical. Like, Michael's that kid in school that does the homework and the extra credit. If I could just, and I also just want to say that before we went on air today, I asked Jeremy, what are we talking about? And he said, I don't know. And because right before we walk on air, we have no idea what we're going to talk about. But in his head, he was planning that we go around in a circle and all talk about our faith journeys. And I would go after the guy who wrote a spiritual autobiography and 2 Ivy League people. So I'll just give a much more simplistic, I'm a simple man, story of my faith journey, which is actually, it's quite a simple thing because I was born into a very Catholic, very religious family, and I had the blessing of not having a conversion story per se because I was brought up in the faith. And I have 5 brothers and sisters. One of my sisters is now a cloistered nun, so there we go, cloister. We got some cloister fans in the audience. It's good. Just to give you an idea of how Catholic our family is. So we were brought up in the faith, and we were not just told to believe it because that's what we believe, but we were equipped with the intellectual tools to understand why we believe these things. And so for me, it was more a process of not so much learning the truth, because we did learn that. It was learning to stand in the truth boldly and proudly. And that was a process that I had to learn. I was raised in a very liberal area, went to public school for all 13 years, K through 12. And, going into an environment, and it's much worse in public schools today than it was even 20 years ago, but it still wasn't great back then. And you're going into an environment, a hostile environment of people who ridicule you for your faith. And I would go home, and we would all sit around the dinner table as a family, and I would sometimes talk about these experiences of talking about my religion in school and being made fun of. And the answer from my parents was always, "Oh, people made fun of you for that." Well, good. Like, that's because you're standing for the truth, and that's what happens. That's how you know that you're standing in the truth. In high school, I went to a high school that had an abortion clinic. Not in the high school, but
that would be extreme.
Not quite. We weren't there.
Be efficient.
There was an abortion clinic that might as well have been, because it was in a parking. It was practically in our parking lot. It was literally a stone's throw away was the abortion clinic. Wow. And my mom and my sisters used to go and pray outside this abortion clinic on Saturday mornings. And I wouldn't. And at first I didn't go because I was as a 14-year-old boy, I was sort of embarrassed. And especially Saturday mornings, you have buses of kids that were coming to school for practices and football players that were going to games and stuff on Saturdays. And there was one time in particular that some friends of mine they were going into to school on a Saturday morning for something, and they saw my family standing outside of the abortion clinic holding rosaries. And they asked me about it. They said, "Was that your family doing that? That was weird." And I kind of didn't respond because I was embarrassed. And then I went back and I told my mom about this, and she said, you were embarrassed that your family is there standing against the murder of babies. That's embarrassing to you. Why is that embarrassing? And of course, I couldn't explain it. And it was sort of like from that moment on, I realized that that if anyone should be embarrassed, it should be them for not understanding why that is wrong. And that's also how I learned to enjoy being a contrarian asshole. So,
I really want to hear Jeremy's religious journey. But first, because we're just getting all this religious talk out here, I want to bring the choir back out here. Can we get the choir back out?
All right.
Please, thank you. All right. Because I really want to talk about something. Thank you, fellas. We would not be here tonight without our good friends over at Good Ranchers. I said we would not be here tonight without our friends over at Good Ranchers.
100% American meat.
Not only are they helping us to bring this live event to you, but I, myself, am only able to stand on this stage because I am fueled by their delicious cuts of
100% American meat
that they deliver right to your door. We conservatives, we often talk about supporting American business and American values, but Good Ranchers is actually doing it. While the left wants us eating bugs and fake meat, while they lecture us about climate change from their private jets, let's you and I enjoy real, delicious
100% American meat
from Good Ranchers instead. Good Ranchers meat has no antibiotics or hormones. It is pre-trimmed and individually packaged. Most important, it is all born, raised, and made right here in the U.S. of A. Good Ranchers is such a big partner of what we do here. I am excited to announce that you can now shop custom Daily Wire boxes of goodranchers.com/dailywire. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's right. My friend Brett Cooper and I have crafted custom Good Ranchers boxes filled with our favorite cuts. The Daily Wire host with the most sales in the first month will be given the Golden Rancher Trophy. Now, I'm going to give out this box right now to one lucky person in the audience. And I'm thinking, I'm peering around, only the first row, because I'm not allowed to get off the stage. You, sir, you get the box. I can't, there you are. There's a coupon in there. We're not allowed to have the meat in the box. It would go bad. Go to goodranchers.com/dailywire to get your Daily Wire box today. You can try it once, or you can subscribe. With code Backstage, save $25 on every box. Plus, subscribers get their pick of free protein for a year, so every box comes with more delicious meat. That is free salmon, free bacon, free chicken breasts for ground beef for a year. Plus, a bonus $25 off with code Backstage. Go to goodranchers.com/dailywire. Remember to use code Backstage for $25 off your order.
Good Ranchers. GoodRanchers.com/dailywire.
Wow.
This is when they go through all that vocal training, this is what they dream of.
My religious journey started with a commercial. A commercial for Golden Meat. Those guys are unbelievable. My journey is a bit like yours, Matt, in that I don't have a conversion story. I didn't grow up in a church-going family, really, but I grew up in a faithful family. And I think we thought we went to church probably more than we did. But, you know, we were a Christian household. We read the Bible together, and we, all the sort of things that kids in the 80s and 90s had in America, from Salty the Singing Songbook through, that guy loves Salty the Singing Songbook. It's a little creepy at this point, I have to say. But we always had religious conversation. My maternal grandfather was sort of a spiritual leader of our family. When I got to college, I would say that I started having somewhat more independent thought about theology. I have a friend, Jay Lemon, who was being paid to teach me piano. I'm not a very good piano player now, but I had very good religious conversations with him throughout college that became really sort of definitive for me. And then I got to LA. And LA is a city, as I've said before, that's always trying to kill you. And because it's always trying to kill you, it forces you to be whatever it is that you're going to be. You have to decide who you are in LA. And you can decide to be what the city wants you to be. That's one way you can survive it. Or you can decide to be as securely what you are apart from it as possible so that you can withstand it. That's the other way that you can survive it. And I picked the latter and wound up sort of teaching this home church for a little over 15 years in one form or another. And like many people, I would say that I learn best through teaching. I mean, that's just it's just another way of approaching it. It gives you responsibility. Now you have to learn something. Like you're going to have to say something on Sunday, so you better learn something between now and then. But the particulars of my journey, probably like all of you, the particulars of my beliefs just continue to evolve with time as you live in this world, and you realize that everything is trying to kill you. like I had this great realization, I've been talking about it a little bit lately, that the sun kills you. That the one thing that all things on earth have in common, they don't have it in common measure, but they all have it in common, is that everything in the world is bad. That you can be the best parent possible. Like you can look back and say, my parents traumatized me and I'm going to be the best parent possible. And yet you will traumatize your child. One of the things that your 6 children will have to overcome in their life is you.
Oh, yeah.
Especially.
Yeah. And one
believe me, I know.
Goes without saying, yeah.
And one of the things that your 3 children will have to overcome in this world is Matt.
Exactly. I tell them all the time.
And I only say that to say, I'm not saying that all things are equally bad. That's certainly not true. There are some things that are genuinely terrible, right? And there are some things that are very, very, very good, like the sun. But the sun, the source of life on earth, will, in fair measure, it will also kill you. That all things in a fallen world, all things in a corrupted world are corrupt, except for the thing that isn't corrupt and isn't corruptible, and that's God. That God is the...
Shout out to
that
God.
That guy
man.
loves God.
Big ups to God.
It's Salty the singing songbook guy and God guy. They're sitting very close to each other. that God is the incorruptible thing. He's the only thing that in any measure is only good for you. And for that reason, I've been thinking of late about our vice president, Kamala Harris, and this saying that she has, that she repeats over and over and over.
Did you fall out of a coconut tree? Is that the one you mean?
Among others.
Okay.
She likes to say, that what might be unburdened by what has been. And at first that sounds like just an inanity, right? It just sounds like another one of these gobbledygook things that she says, which are of a kind with the gobbledygook things that her predecessor likes to say.
Come on, Jack.
Go on, Jack, yeah. But it isn't inane at all. It's actually an incredibly evil philosophy. It has real meaning, and she means it. And it's the opposite of my worldview. Because I'm a bit of an idealist as well. I'm not big on dogma. Part of my religious experience is when I realized that all of the claims of the Catholic Church aren't true.
Yeah, wait a second.
I kid.
He's not kidding. He's not kidding. Yeah.
Some of them are true.
I'm just going to sit over here, guys.
Some of them are true. No, but that like all other things on earth, our dogma and our doctrine also contain the corruption of the fall, that all of them which can be used for good can in measure be used for bad as well. And yet, my idealism about what can be is not unburdened by what has been. It's decidedly built on what has been. And I think that part of our job as human beings is to look to the wisdom of the past, identify the flaws, because humans are flawed and our institutions have been flawed, and to try to take the best things about what we've inherited and to give correction to the worst things that we've inherited. And we will, in doing that, create things which contain good and which in certain measure will kill you. And so 1,000 years from now, people will look back on the things that we've bequeathed to the future. And we'll have done so for very good reasons, faithful to God, prayerfully, not cynically. We'll have done them for hopefully for as pure a motive as possible. And yet, even in those will be contained flaws. Our children will have to overcome the trauma of us, right? And yet, the ultimate foundation that we're trying to pass along is the incorruptible foundation. The real wisdom of the past is what our ancestors and forebears all knew, which is that our life is rooted in the incorruptible. And one last thought, and then I'll stop, which is, listening to Michael, you were talking about the proofs of God, and Ben, you were suggesting that God, while you agree with many of the proofs, there are no conclusive proofs of God. And I think that brings us ultimately to the most important of the theological, well, I suppose the most important is love, but there is one other of the three, and that's faith. That faith is the thing that lives between what proofs we can have and what proofs we cannot have. And our ultimate experience of God is through faith. That's where we live in this in this material world, in this time and in this place, our experience of God is primarily an experience of God through faith. And that's not an accident. That's the exact way that God wants us to experience him, is by way of faith.
It's a very important point you're making, too, on the ubiquity of at least some modicum of corruption, and usually more than a modicum of corruption in this world, because it gets to, this would be our disagreement about the church, which is, when Christ says, I'll be with you even until the end of the age, I'll send the Holy Spirit to guide you. That's a special claim because of all this corruption. And so this is why we say the Bible is inerrant. This is why Catholics believe that the church is preserved from error on dogmatic teaching, though on certain other teaching, there are all sorts of debates. But it gets to a political problem then, too. Mm-hmm. And this is something I think that everyone on stage, and I suspect everyone in the audience, will agree with, which is this matter of authority, political authority. Where does political authority come from? Does political authority come from some piece of paper? Not really. There are plenty of great pieces of paper in America. We like the Constitution. We like all sorts. But that's not really. The political authority comes from claims of authority that are accepted by the people. We don't like that Joe Biden's the president. Some of us doubt that he's even still alive. But we still acknowledge him as the president right now. He has
salty guy, God guy. Joe Biden.
Biden might be alive guy.
They're all sitting right here.
But where? How does the government get to say, we're the government, do what we say? Mm-hmm. The way they get to do that is they make a claim of authority. They claim to speak for justice. They claim to be an enactment of justice. Mm-hmm. But in order to make that claim, you have to believe in God. You have to implicitly believe in God because you have to believe that there's such a thing as justice. You have to believe that there's such a thing as a moral order that you can put into practice and enforce and legislate. And so even our hideous liberal elites who say that they're atheist or secular, or we can live with a total separation of church and state, they don't believe that because they're making claims about justice. They never shut up about justice. I
don't agree with that entirely. I mean, I think that the line, in Paradise Lost, was another poem.
I think I've heard the ripoff of Dante.
In Paradise Lost, Milton is trying to work out why it was okay for him to rebel against the king, Charles I, a human king, and why it was wrong for Satan to rebel against God, a godly king. And what happens to Satan when he separates himself from God is he separates himself from reality. This is my whole point about God being real. And Satan starts out by saying, well, I can make reality. I can turn heaven into hell and hell into heaven. The mind is its own place. And he ends up realizing that because God is reality, and not just reality, but the goodness of reality, he ends up saying, myself am hell. Whichever way I fly, there is hell, because he can't reattach himself to the reality, the good reality. And I think that some of our friends on the left have reached this point, which that satanic theory is passed down to us through Nietzsche, who said there's no God, God is dead, therefore we have to make the moral order. And then to Foucault, an amazing, he is like the hero of the left. Foucault is the hero of the academic left, a guy who said there's no such thing as truth. Everything is just a power structure, so I'm going to destroy all the power structures in myself, and proceeded to go on an orgy of sadomasochistic sex until he got AIDS, killed everyone he was in contact with, and himself. And the academics think, that's my guy. I'm with him. And so I think they do believe that there is no God, and there is no truth, and there is no morality. And my only point about this is that we all know deep down, here's where I agree with you, we all know deep down that that's nonsense, but they are willing to actually follow the king of death into his territory.
This is a great point. And so I guess what I mean to say, because I agree with that entirely, what I mean to say is when the left says, we're the government, listen to us, they're making a claim of authority which implies some claim about justice, which implies that God exists. But sure, they don't really believe in God. Right. Or they don't. So I guess this would be...
But here's the distinction, I think, and it goes all the way back to the first pages of that one book, that they are speaking in a God framework, but they have replaced God with them.
Right.
Yes.
They are God.
This is the difference between making a claim about authority and a claim from totalitarianism. You know, in one, the government is actually being kind of humble because you're saying there's this moral order that I'm enforcing. In totalitarianism, it's just whatever I want. So in one, the reason is mediating between the appetite and the divine will. In the other, it's just pure will.
And that means that it's bound to fail. Because if you go back to the original biblical structure of how government was supposed to work, if you go back to the 5 books of Moses, before we actually get to the breakdown of the judges and the kings, when there's a first discussion of what the king is supposed to do, it says that he actually is supposed to write his own copy of the Torah, and he's supposed to carry it around with him, right? Because he's the only person in the entire Bible who has to write 2 copies. So everybody is enjoined to actually participate in the writing of a Torah in Judaism. My family's been lucky enough to do that. It's a really cool thing. But if you're the king, then you actually have to not only write it, you have to carry it around all day because you're subject to the law. So the idea is that even God's king is subject to God's law. What the left decided to do was take away God and leave the law. And when they did that, what they became was satanic. What they became were representatives of these free-floating ideas that are no longer connected to the roots of the ideas. So they're speaking in language. It's actually very reminiscent of nearly all of the left's political campaigns. They use buzzwords of the right, empty them of all meaning, and then proceed to weaponize them against the right. So they'll do this with things like weird or joy. They'll empty them of meaning, refill them with a different meaning, and then use the cut-out husks of those things as their props. And they do that with justice by substituting social justice in favor of justice, or they'll say
or
law.
Woman, for instance.
Or woman, or law. I mean, like very, very truth. These very basic concepts. They'll empty them of content and then they'll use them because in the end, the only concepts that human beings have to work with are religious concepts. There are no other concepts. Right. All of these concepts are religious. The backing for science is reliant in a very deep and profound way upon certain basic religious truths, like the predictability of the universe, like the idea that there is a cause and effect, like the fact that your human brain, your meatball of a brain, can understand actual absolute truths that exist out there. These are all faith principles. And you mentioned before the importance of faith. In Hebrew, the word for faith is emunah. Okay, that word actually doesn't mean faith. Really, it means trust. It's also the source of the word amen, right, or amen in English. The basic idea is that when somebody says a blessing and you say amen, what you're really saying is that you trust that that's true. When you say you have faith in God, you don't mean that, again, that you sort of have faith in a random concept out there. God doesn't care, in my opinion, too much about your opinions. I think God cares very much about his opinions. But what that really means is that you have trust, if you're a smart person, in that what God says is true. And what the left keeps running up against is that reality. They keep doing stupid things and running directly against a brick wall and then being angry that the brick wall of reality exists. And so they're constantly at war with reality. And they're bound to fail. They're bound to fail. And so what they've decided as their system of government in response to this is a risk-free existence. Because the only person who can take a risk is the person who's willing to jump knowing that there is another side to that cliff, right? That you can jump off the cliff and on the other side there's going to be a gap, and then on the other side there's something there, right? Not necessarily knowing. Every person who's taken a risk, which is to say Americans, because we are a risk-taking people above all else. If there's one thing that characterizes America, it's that we are a place of risk-takers. We're people who came from all over the world with nothing, literally nothing, to a place where there was nothing. I understand, yes, there were Native Americans who lived here, but there was no Western civilization, there were no buildings, there was no system, there was no government that was capable of spanning the vast territory. And then they were told by the government not to cross mountains. They crossed the mountains, they went there, they lived in the middle of nowhere, they got shot at, they got scalped, and then they built a civilization. Americans are risk takers. How can you take that risk? You can only take that risk if you have trust that there is a system of reality, that when you take that risk, you land on the other side. And what the left has decided to do is eliminate risk in life and give you, in compensation, the only risk you're allowed to take is sexual risk. Right? So they give you sexual risk and they took away all the other risks, economic risk and faith risk and all the risks that actually make life worth living. Because it turns out that actually one of the least important things in life is sexual risk-taking. It's actually not a very good thing for you. But it turns out that entrepreneurship is quite good for you. Creativity is quite good for you. The ultimate leaps that we all take in our lives, the leap of faith, the leap of family. Yeah. Okay, the leap of family is a massive leap of faith. No one knows what the hell it's going to be like when you have kids. I mean, Matt has 6 of them, and every time, I won't speak for you, I'll speak for myself. Every time we have another kid, we have 4, it is a risk because, like, I don't know what this kid is going to be like. Even now, I don't know what my kids are going to be like tomorrow. I don't know what they're going to be like in 10 years. It's a huge risk. And we are a people being robbed of our initiative and robbed of our risk-taking abilities because the ground upon which we walk, which is a faith-based ground, has been ripped away from us by a secular left.
Right. And the thing about it is, say this is because of science, because science has revealed that all the things in the Bible are untrue. My brilliant son, Spencer Klavan, no relation to me, has written an actual book about this, about the fact that you come to places in science where it suddenly seems that the human mind cannot actually conceive of reality. So you start to make up things like multiverses, and we're in a simulation, things like this. But in fact, every time a scientist has taken that leap of faith and said, you know what, my mind and God's mind are not disconnected. Every time science has advanced, and you've gotten a renaissance of science. There's a wonderful book coming out about this in a couple of months, so I won't plug it now. But still, it's a brilliant insight that science itself depends on just the kind of risk
that God is still God on the other side of the mountain.
That's right.
Amazing idea.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left, and I want to talk about the most important thing happening at the Daily Wire right now, and that is Matt Walsh's movie, Am I Racist? It is fair to say that it's the biggest risk that we've yet taken as a company. We're putting the film in theaters. It's our first major theatrical release, and tickets go on sale right now. So at this very moment, as we all sit here, tickets are officially on sale for Am I Racist? And because you made a point to come see us today and spend your Wednesday night with us, we're going to give you an exclusive look at the first scene that we're releasing publicly of the film.
The white participants in the group feel that there's something in themselves that they have to overcome, when all that's being requested of you is that you be. Hello.
Hi.
How are you? How are
Sorry
you?
about that.
Oh, no problem. You good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remind me of your name again.
Stephen.
Stephen? Yeah? Okay. Did you want to come up?
Come up?
Yeah, do you want to come up and share anything?
Sure. What do you want me to share?
Whatever's on your
I
mind.
just want to know that, like, my physical safety and yours and everybody else's here is okay.
Why would your physical safety not be okay? Did I miss something?
I don't feel comfortable.
What? Can you guys catch me up to speed on what's going on here?
You don't need to be caught up. We're going to be silent.
Is it because I said I had 17 black friends? It might have been 15. It depends on how you count them.
I would really appreciate it if you left so that the people who actually want to be here and deserve to be here can get what they need.
I do want to be
Can
here.
you please leave?
I would like it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Come with me.
Well,
Thank you.
I didn't consent to be touched.
I'm not offering to touch you. I'm offering to walk you out. Will you walk with me and I'll answer your questions?
Okay, I'll admit it. My name's not Stephen. Maybe you already knew that. My name is Matt Walsh.
We know.
I just was here on this journey that I'm just starting, but I see that I'm not wanted.
If you were on your journey, then you would have told us who you were, your real name, but you didn't.
Are you saying I
Please
needed a
leave.
better disguise? Is that what you...
I don't know, maybe. But you can figure that out as you walk out the door.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank you so much. I really had a transformative experience myself. And my pronouns are he, him.
I did everything I could to fit in. I opened up. I was raw and emotional. I told them about my black friends. It was no use. They rejected me, and they called the police. My mere presence in the room caused them pain. I'll never be accepted if I look like this. If they know that I'm Matt Walsh, I'll always be an outsider. I need to go deeper undercover, a whole new identity. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one. Like someone who is progressive, tolerant, enlightened. Let me think. Have I ever met anyone like that? Ah, yes. Yes, I have.
What is a woman?
Why do you ask the question?
Racist. Rated PG-13. Buy tickets now.
Thank you. I feel like I need to back up here for a second. Explain a little bit of what you just saw there. So that was I don't want to explain it too much because I want you to go pre-order the tickets and go watch it when it comes out. But that was a white grief support group, which is a real thing that exists. All this stuff is very, very real. And that was a support group for white people who are grieving the fact that they have privilege. Yes. And so we started this journey of making this film, and we found out about this group, and we said, well, of course, I have to go. This is a good place for me to start my journey. And when we walked in there, the first thing they told us, so this became a theme with some of the other people we talked to in the film, that they said that you're not allowed to have white tears, and if you cry, if you're a white person and you're crying, you need to leave the room. We have a cry room for you outside of the room for you to cry your hideous tears. And so I go into the white groups, the white support group. I'm very emotional. I get quite emotional up to this point, revealing my struggles as a white man to the group. At a certain point, I had to leave and go to the cry room. I was so emotional. And the problem is that while I was in the cry room, apparently one or two people in the group realized who I was, and they talked to everybody else in the group, so that when I came back from the cry room, that's what happened. So, you also have to understand how hard that is for me, that I was already emotional and fragile, and then I come out and that's what happens. And they did.
Did they actually call the police?
They did, in fact, call the police. Now, I was long gone at that point. In fact, our camera crew was calling me and saying, they're calling the police, I don't know what to do. I said, well, I'm leaving the state. You guys just stay there and figure it out. I was in New Jersey by then. I'm like, just get it on tape is all that matters. But they were very, very upset about it. And all I'll say is that, that's just the beginning of the movie. That's what starts the journey. And that's where we realized that I need to don some kind of disguise. And, lots of people that have seen the trailer have said, like, it's not much of a disguise. How did that fool people? That I don't know. But, it's like a man bun will do wonders, is what we do.
So the movie is a great successor to What is a Woman, but it is an evolution. It's not another sort of documentary where Matt the Everyman goes in and has conversations with these people. It really is something that we haven't seen before from the right, which is it's a genuine comedy in which you allow these people to be the butt of the joke in a way that we've historically only seen from Sacha Baron Cohen or even Jon Stewart in sort of the heyday of The Daily Show, where you both mock and allow these people to mock themselves in a way that I don't think we've ever seen on the right. It's a truly special film and a true risk.
Which is why, just to reiterate, that's why it's so important that pre-ordering tickets is so important.
Yeah.
And I know that if you're like me, I've never pre-ordered a movie ticket in my life because I don't know. Like, I get to see one movie every 10 years. I don't know when that time will come. When it comes, we go. But it's so important in this case because that determines a lot. It determines how many theaters get to show the movie, and it determines the success of the movie in a big way. And if we want more films like this to make it into theaters, then that's why we need all of your support. But the thing is, we're not just asking for charity here. I promise that when you go watch the movie, you're in for a really fun time at the movies as well.
Friends, we're so grateful to you for spending your Wednesday night with us at the Ryman Auditorium. Thank you for being a great audience. Remember to get out there, buy those advance tickets for Am I Racist at amiRacist.com. Let's show Hollywood that Nashville is now Movie City. Special thanks to the Gospel Touch Choir for making this a beautiful show for us. Special thanks to our sponsors, Birch Gold and Good Ranchers, to all of our Daily Wire Plus subscribers who make it possible for us to do the work that we do, and to you guys for being here tonight. Thank you very much. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thank you.
Good night, guys.
Guys. Hey. Thank you, guys.
Let's be clear what's happening in this country. It's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much. At least not to me.
Being a white, straight, cisgender man is the top of the pile.
I'm on the top of the pile. That's me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Can you please leave?
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one.
What is racism?
Martin Luther King said not to judge people by the...
Martin Luther King said a lot of stuff.
Is America inherently racist?
What the hell is that?
The word inherent is challenging there. America is racist to its bones. All of the...
So inherently.
Yeah. The entire system has to burn. And I'm not going to even use save this country. This country is not worth saving. This country is a piece of shit.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
They gonna say I'm racist. Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification.
Where are you guys in your anti-racist journeys?
So I'll look around the room and point to who we believe is the most racist person in the room.
We want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument. Would you mind signing it? You will? What do you think about this issue of heteronormativity and how it intersects with the broader structures of racism in society?
They gonna say I'm racist.
What's up with white people? What are you doing to decenter your whiteness?
Who's making it the center? Why are they doing that?
And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
White.
Entitlement.
White.
Centering. White. Silence.
Is there a black person around here? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gonna say I'm racist, but they call everybody racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. And what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Matt. Hi, Matt.
Nice to meet you.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
In theaters September 13th. It's rated PG-13. Buy tickets now.